The Call of the Wild, Jack London, 9 of 20. And that bird fight leg to hells was Francois' answer. And now we make good time. No more speech, no more trouble here. While Pero packed the camp outfit and loaded the sled, the dog driver proceeded to harness the dogs. Buck trotted up to the place Speech would have occupied as leader. But Francois, not noticing him, brought Solex to the coveted position. In his judgment, Solex was the best lead dog left. Buck sprang upon Solex in a fury, driving him back and standing in his place. Francois cried, slapping his thighs gleefully. He took Buck by the scruff of the neck, and though the dog growled threateningly, directed him to one side and replaced Solex. The old dog did not like it and showed plainly that he was afraid of Buck. Francois was up to it, but when he turned his back, Buck again displaced Solex, who was not at all unwilling to go. Francois was angry. "Now, by God, I'll fix you," he cried, coming back with a heavy club in his hand. Buck remembered the man in the red sweater and retreated slowly. Buck was in open revolt. He wanted not to escape a clubbing, but to have the leadership. It was his by right. He had earned it, and he would not be content with less. Pero took a hand. Between them, they ran him about for the better part of an hour. They threw clubs at him. He dodged it. Francois sat down and scratched his head. Pero looked at his watch and swore. Time was flying, and they should have been on the trail an hour gone. Francois scratched his head again. At a bound, but took up the duties of leadership, and where judgment was required, and quick thinking and quick acting, he showed himself the superior even of speech, of whom Francois had never seen an equal. But it was in giving the law and making his mates live up to it that Buck excelled. Dave and Solex did not mind the change in leadership. It was none of their business. Their business was to toil, and toil mightily in the traces. So long as that were not interfered with, they did not care what happened. Billy, the good-natured, could lead for all they cared, so long as he kept order. The rest of the team, however, had grown unruly during the last days of speech, and their surprise was great now that Buck proceeded to lick them into shape. Pike, who pulled at Buck's heels, and who never put an ounce more of his weight against the breastband than he was compelled to do, was swiftly and repeatedly shaken for loafing. And ere the first day was done, he was pulling more than ever before in his life. The first night in camp, Joe, the sour one, was punished roundly, a thing that speech had never succeeded in doing. The general tone of the team picked up immediately. It recovered its old-time solidarity, and once more the dogs leaped as one dog in the traces. At the rink rapids, 2 native huskies, Tick and Kuna, were added, and the celerity with which Buck broke them in took away Francois' breath. He was ahead of the record then and gaining day by day. The trail was in excellent condition, well packed and hard, and there was no new fallen snow with which to contend. It was not too cold. The temperature dropped to 50 below zero and remained there the whole trip. The men rode and ran by turn, and the dogs were kept on the jump with the infrequent stoppages. The 30-mile river was comparatively coated with ice, and they covered in one day going out what had taken them 10 days coming in. It was a record run. Each day for 14 days they had averaged 40 miles. For 3 days, Pero and Francois threw trash up and down the main street of Skagway and were deluged with invitations to drink, while the team was the constant center of a worshipful crowd of dog-busters and mushers. Then 3 or 4 Western bad men aspired to clean out the town, were riddled like pepper boxes for their pains, and public interest turned to other idols. Next came official orders. Francois called Buck to him, threw his arms around him, wept over him. And that was the last of Francois and Paro. Like other men, they passed out of Buck's life for good. A Scotch half-breed took charge of him and his mate, and in company with a dozen other dog teams, he started back over the weary trail to Dawson. It was no light running now, no record time, but heavy toil each day with a heavy load behind. For this was the mail train carrying word from the world to the men who sought gold under the shadow of the pole. Buck did not like it, but he bore up well to the work, taking pride in it after the manner of Dave and Solex, and seeing that his mates, whether they prided in it or not, did their fair share. It was a monotonous life, operating with machine-like regularity. One day was very like another. At a certain time each morning, the cooks turned out, fires were built, and breakfast was eaten. Then, while some broke camp, others harnessed the dogs, and they were on the way an hour or so before the darkness fell, which gave warning of dawn. At night, camp was made. Some pitched the flies, others cut firewood and pine boughs for the beds, and still others carried water or ice for the cooks. Also, the dogs were fed. To them, this was one feature of the day, though it was good to loaf around after the fish was eaten for an hour or so with the other dogs, of which there were 80. There were fierce fighters among them, but 3 battles with the fiercest brought Buck to mastery, so that when he bristled and showed his teeth, they got out of his